Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Tiffany and this is the Passionately Crafted podcast. And I'm here today with another podcast. Normally I do these every 2 weeks because that's really what my knitting time promotes. But I've worked on 3 different sweaters this week. I have a finished object. I think I'm gonna have another finished object next week. So I figured rather than having one episode with a whole bunch to talk about, because I tend to talk more about my finished objects, I figured I would split it up and do an episode this week where I talk about my Ingrid sweater and an episode next week where I talk a bit about the other potential finished object that I think is coming our way. So hopefully that's okay and you just get a surprise episode this week. So before we jump in, my name is Tiffany. If you are interested in following me elsewhere, my Ravelry and my Instagram are listed below. On Instagram, I do daily reels that are like a little daily vlog of my knitting. So if you're into that, definitely check me out over on Instagram. And then Ravelry, I try to be okay about putting project pages up. I think I still need to do this one. I need to catch up. But I do share things over on Ravelry as well. So that information's below. Also, if you need to email me for any reason, my email is down below as well. I am from a suburb north of Houston, Texas. I have 2 boys, single mom to two boys, a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. We have a dog, a puppy who's 4 months old named Cooper. And yeah. So it's been a fun week in our life. So at the end, I'll talk a bit about how life was this week. So if you're into that, stay tuned. But for now, we will just jump into the knitting. So I have a finished object this week. Now, I feel like I need to block it again. I need to buy more blocking mats is what I need to do, because I end up not having a way to block the sleeves the way that I hope to. And so the sleeves are like, if I don't flatten them down the way I blocked it, is kind of funky. But this is my Ingrid sweater by Passioknitly. I'm sure you guys have seen it before. I'll get a little bit closer so that you can see the texture. And I finished this. When did it snow? It snowed on Tuesday, which means I finished it on Sunday and blocked it. So I finished it last Sunday. Today is Friday when I'm filming this. Friday, December 24th. And I finished it on Sunday. I blocked it, and then I was able to wear it for a snow day here in town. So I'll talk a bit more about the snow at the end and put some footage that we took, because it doesn't snow here very often, and it was a really fun day for me and my 5-year-old. My oldest was at his dad's, but me and my little one, we got to build a snowman and have a grand old time. So this sweater, I knit the size small on the recommended needles, which was a US 6 for the body and a US 4 for the ribbing. I did make some modifications to that pattern, which I will talk through here in a minute. The yarn that I used is Holskarn Super Soft, held double in the color Sugar Snap, and then I held that with a Knitting for Olive mohair in the color Dusty Rose. And that is how we got this lovely mauve color. And when I washed this, Super Soft, if you don't know, is a cone. So here's one that looks like this. And it comes like this, and it still has spinning oil in the yarn. I'm not sure why they leave the spinning oil in there, but I know you get a ton of yarn on this cone, so maybe it just like allows it to be more compact. I'm not really sure. But when you wash it in extremely hot water with like Dawn dish soap, and it strips the oil out of the yarn. The water actually turns like this really yucky brown color, but the yarn blooms and it takes on a whole new life once you get the spinning oil out of it, and it softens up a ton. And this sweater is like so soft and cozy. I did actually get the finished measurements for the size, like I got gauged spot on. So that's pretty cool. It is meant to be an extremely oversized sweater, so you can see like my body is here. I have a 34.5-inch bust, and for my size, it was calling for a 44-inch bust. I didn't want to do an extra small because I would have been a lot smaller than the called for gauge and fit. So I went with a small, which got me about an inch additional ease than what was called for, but I would rather be a little oversized, more so than called for, than to be too small. I may, one day make the smaller version just to see how it fits me, but, I've got it. If I tuck it in, you can kind of see the drape and everything. The sleeves are meant to be oversized. They do have some decreases, so you can see that puckering with the way I blocked it. That was all me. There's a really fun seam detail with eyelets there on the back that follows the shoulder. And when I blocked it, I blocked it funky, so I'll have to reblock that out. But yeah, the sleeves are meant to be a little oversized, and I want to talk about the sleeves a bit because Petite Knit is such a popular designer, and this is my first long sleeve pattern that I've ever finished of hers. I've only ever finished an Anchors tee, which was short sleeve, and I feel like it's important for everyone to know that this was not a beginner's pattern. Like, not that she gives the assumption that it is, but so many people talk about Petite Knit and so many people want to knit her because it's popular to do so. The decreases in the sleeve, obviously this is an all over textured pattern, and they were not charted, okay? So your chart just acts like it's a straight sleeve. But then in the notes, which you have to read the notes to know this, it details that you have to do decreases every 8 rows while you're following this chart. Well, like this lattice section here, right? When you do decreases in the lattice section, which I need to find where my seam is. Oh, it's right here. So when you do decreases in the lattice section, you then are cutting out a stitch, so you can't follow the chart anymore, right? You have to realize, okay, I decreased right here, so now I need to realize that stitch is no longer there. So I can't do my right crosses and left crosses where I would have done my right crosses and left crosses because I decreased. I think it's a lot easier when charts have the decreases in the chart, which I think she could have done because you don't start the decreases until you start the chart, and she could have easily included them in the chart. So I was a little bit let down by the fact that that Petite Knit did not include the decrease, just the simple symbols and then shape the sleeve like this as you're going through the chart. I'm not really sure why that was not done, but you should know that going in that your moss stitch is going to shift because you're doing knit, purl, and then you decrease those knit stitches, maybe, like this is hypothetical, then you have to then shift on the next row that you're off on your moss stitch pattern because you did a decrease. So you have to keep track of all of that while also following a chart of texture that just basically gives you, okay, this is your moss stitch, now repeat this 8 times. Well, while you're repeating that 8 times, you also have to remember, okay, every 8 rows I have to do a decrease. And then once I do the decrease, I need to make sure that I don't get off in my moss stitch pattern. So the sleeves were stressful for me. Just trying to make sure I didn't mess anything up. And it wasn't easily followed. So just keep that in mind when you knit this pattern. The sleeves and the decreases make the texture a little bit more complex, I guess you would say. Okay, I think I need to clear out some space on my memory card, and then I will be back and talk about what I modified in the pattern. Okay, so what did I do that was a little bit different? So the collar, which I think I'm going to redo. I think I'm going to change what I did here, not right now, but it calls for a kind of a mock neck, not quite a turtleneck, but a longer necked top with like ribbing into a different kind of ribbing, and I just didn't like it. It wasn't my style. And then I thought about doing a folded collar, which is another option she gave me, but I felt like it might be a little bit too bulky with my yarn combo. But I think that's what I'm gonna go back and do. I think I'm going to take off the bind off here, pick up the stitches, and then knit it longer and then tack it down to give it a little bit more structure because it's a little bit too wide. I think I picked up a little bit too many stitches here, but I think if I do where I tack it down, I think that's going to help resolve the problem, and it gives me the option to put elastic in if I want to, because it doesn't need much cinching, but it needs a little bit of cinching up there. So that was the first modification that I made. The second modification was the lattice section here and here on the sleeves was meant to be a double lattice section, but it was hurting me. It was hurting my hands and my shoulders and my wrists. And so instead I decided to add I did a single lattice section here. I did the regular double ribbed knit 2 purl 2 rib that it called for. And then I added a moss stitch section prior to the ribbing. And then I reduced the ribbing down by about half of what was called for. I think you're supposed to do 18 rows. I did 9, and then the 2 setup rows for the Italian bind off. So those are the changes I made. Everything else followed the pattern exactly. And I absolutely love how this turned out. It is like your comfy, cozy sweatshirt vibes. I really love the way the color came out. I'm thrilled. Like I said, I'm gonna change the neckline, I think, but other than that, super thrilled with this sweater, and I'm excited to have it in my closet. So I think that's everything that I wanted to say about this. I probably talked really fast there, but I don't know. I think the key takeaway was that this is not a beginner pattern. There are a lot of skills in here, just in terms of managing your knitting in a way that you know exactly where you are, you know where you need to end off, you know when you need to decrease, all of that stuff. So, okay. The next whip that I'm going to talk about is for a knit along with Casey from Young Folk Knits and Jessica and Rachel from Those Twins Who Knit. And they are hosting a knit along for the Stornoway sweater by Coco Amore Knitwear. And I had talked about this in my last week's video, but I did do some additional work on it, so I thought I would just show you guys. So whenever I talked about it last time, I was up here, still finishing the increases, and since then I have knit straight for quite a bit, but the back panel is getting there. We're almost there. So let's talk yarn and sizing and everything. So I am knitting this in the size 3, and I'm knitting it with a combination of Kelborn Woolens Scout in the color Oatmeal Heather, and holding that with Sandnes Garn Tin Silk Mohair in the color Cream. That is my main color. And then my contrast color is a combination of a Moonglow Yarnclo DK that she no longer carries this base, and this color is not a color that you can get. It doesn't even have a color name. And then this is Sandnes Garn Tin Silk Mohair in Deep Forest Green. So that is my contrast color. And what do I want to say about this pattern? So the construction on this back panel, I know it's going to lead to a really cool look, but it has been a little bit interesting in terms of the yarn and the amount of ends that I've had so far. So there's that. The stitch pattern is super cool and easy to follow. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in that sense, and I'm loving it. I think it's going to be beautiful. It's a worsted weight, so a DK held with a mohair, and it's a worsted weight gauge. I'm knitting it on the called for needles, which is a size US 8, and I think I haven't been devoting a ton of time to this. I've only really knit on this 2 different sessions, and I've gotten this much done. So it is a quick knit, but I have been working to try to finish some other whips, and then this one's going to be my next focus piece after I finish the next whip that I'm going to show you. So This one should be hopefully finished pretty quick just because of the gauge and the potato chippy nature of the, if you can see, there's texture in all of these main color rows, and then the contrast color is just stockinette, but super potato chippy because not only are you striping, but then you're also doing some cool texture bands. So you just want to get to the next one. So at least that's what I have found. But yeah, so that's my Stornoway and where it's sitting today. And then the last whip is my current focus whip that I am trying to finish up. So we have got some decent progress on this in the 3 days that I have been working on it diligently. And that is my Porcelain sweater by Lay Knit, or Lene Holmes Somsa. And I am knitting this in the size medium, and I'm knitting it with the called for yarn, just in a different color combo. So my the called for yarn is Sandusgarn 10 Pure Ghent held with Sandusgarn 10 Silk Mohair. And my main color is the 10 Pure Ghent in the color Oatmeal held with the 10 Silk Mohair in the color Almond. And then my contrast color is both of those yarns in the color Blackberry. So when we left off, or where we were on this before we started it, was right here in the color work pattern. So I have knit all of that since 3 days ago. I haven't worked on it at all today, so I've got only 3 days of work under my belt. So the second color work band on the body is completely finished. The stockinette section on the body after that is completely finished, and I am about 9 rows in to the third color work and the last color work band. Once I finish this color work band, which will be the same thickness as these other two, I have a centimeter of stockinette and then the body ribbing. So we will be done with the body ribbing here pretty darn quick. I don't know if it's going to be tonight, but I think it'll definitely be done tomorrow. And then we'll start on the sleeves. So yeah, one interesting thing I want to say about this, and I'll enter some footage, put some footage here so you can actually see this up close. But I started this sweater in April of 2024, and I had not done much color work, and I definitely hadn't done color work in a really long time. And so I didn't know as much about color dominance and tension and all of that that goes along with color work, right? And I think the first band, I did an okay job with my dominance. I think my back actually looks better than the front in terms of the crispness of the stitches. But my second color work band, which I'll put here, a little clip of what I'm talking about, you can see that the first bit of the color work, which I did probably in the summer, or no, I did it in the fall. I did it when I was in Germany maybe, or after I was in Germany, like sometime in the fall. Before I knit the Irish sweater, though, is the key to the timeline, is that the Irish sweater taught me a ton. So before I knit the Irish sweater, you can see that my dominance, I was holding my contrast color as dominant throughout. And what happened was that my main color got lost in one of the areas of the pattern. And I'm gonna have to go back and duplicate stitch it because now everything looks muddied. It looks like blobs on this first attempt at it. But my second attempt, where I changed the dominance like I kept changing back and forth between the purple being dominant and the cream being dominant for this particular row, and it made such a difference in the motif. So I showed you it up close, but just to kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So this was the first one that I did. You can see the white stitches are like completely lost. It looks really muddy in here. But when you come down here, you see the white stitches that are crisp and clean, and the motif actually looks crisp, like such a difference. And that was just literally me taking the time to rotate the dominance of my yarns in that one little section where those motifs are. And it's just such a world of difference. So lesson learned, obviously that color dominance does really make a difference, and putting in that little bit of effort will change the entire look of a color work section. So Now you know, and I'm just gonna go back and duplicate stitch on the ones that I messed up. But I absolutely love, love, love this sweater. I cannot wait to have it. When I hold it up to this one, let's see. So the colorwork band probably, yeah, I mean, the length makes sense. So I'll finish the colorwork band, I'll do a centimeter, and then do 3 inches of ribbing. And we'll be done with the body. So, I'm using the called for needle. No, I'm not. I went up a needle size. I lied to you guys. I went up a needle size. I'm using a US 7 for this to get gauge. It calls for a US 6, and I think that's it. If you want to see my daily progress on this, definitely follow me on Instagram. I am filming daily reels on this project currently, and it is going to be my focus piece until I finish it. So I don't know that I will work on much else because I'm loving it. I'm definitely getting my fill with the color work, and I love the yard. This was my first ever project with Sandnes yarn, and I really like it. The 10 Pure Ghent is a fingering weight, and obviously paired with the mohair makes this a DK weight sweater, and I'm a fan. So I cannot wait to have this. I think it's going to be so pretty when it's done, and I should hopefully be back next week with a finished object. I think that's everything for today. I don't have any haul. My plans are just to finish this porcelain sweater and then to shift over to my Stornoway and hopefully get that one done. Once I finish both of those, I will be casting on a new sweater and then also picking out my next whip that I'm going to focus on. I will probably focus my energies on said whip and then have the new cast on sweater there as an option, which I've talked about it. It's going to be my terracotta sweater by Lay Knit. Like, I'm making myself finish this one first before I cast on a terracotta sweater. I have the yarn for it. I'm ready to go. But I'm not letting myself do it until this porcelain sweater is off the needles, because it's been on the needles for the longest out of all of my whips. April of 2024, this guy has been cast on since then, so I need to get it done. And it's going to get done in the next little bit. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you'll subscribe and stick around, and I hope if you'll like this video if you enjoyed watching it. It really does help my channel, and yeah, I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.